I guess you're managing, we'll say the New York Rangers and the team. Is that kind of what your priority is, I guess, as a GM to um I guess bring in like leaders like that right away? Is that your number one, like the culture part?
It is if you think you're in a position where you've got to win the championship. In New York, that's what they really wanted. And you might say to yourself, well, isn't that what every city wants? Well, of course they do, but there's some cities like Ottawa right now where you're not sitting there saying like, okay, who do I bring in to win the Stanley Cup? I mean, you don't, you might in Carolina, for example, they've made a huge change in their culture. Um, One of the reasons might be Rod Brindamore, who was the captain of the Carolina team that won the Stanley Cup. He's now the coach and done a great job. His mental toughness is very apparent. You've got Colorado that won it last year that obviously had the right things going on within their organization to turn around from the team that picked first overall not too many years ago to the team that won the cup last year. But if you're with a team like, say, Buffalo, you're not the GM in Buffalo looking around saying, okay, what's that piece that I bring in to win the cup? You're trying to say, what's that piece that I bring in to push us to the playoffs this year? Push us into the playoffs. And then once you've been pushed into the playoffs, the next year you're saying, how do we get to the next level? And you've got to take it at levels. You're never going to make that jump from, bad to great in one year.
Yeah, it takes time for sure, like anything, and building these teams and cultures. So, did you know you had time when you took that Ranger job right then? Did you know you had five, well, say it took you to say 5 years to do it,
Yeah.
or
I thought I would have that as long as you showed improvement over the years, because remember, this was an organization that hadn't ended in first place since 1942. So our first year we won, we were in first place in the Patrick division. And so everybody was very impressed by that. And then so that buys you a little bit more credibility. And then you go on to the next step. But you've got to do it there. You've got to show progress, substantial progress in New York, or else they're ready to move on to the next person really quickly. More substantial progress than you might have to show in one of the smaller cities, where the expectations aren't that high, say Minnesota. I'm not saying anything bad about Minnesota. I'm just, as an example, Minnesota Wild wouldn't have the same expectations and pressures put on the team as a New York City team.
yeah.
So yeah, you earn your own credibility and time, by doing the right moves and them giving you a little bit more time, seeing that you're headed in the right direction.
And do you remember what I'm really interested in this is what contract you were on? Were it like 2 year, 3 year to start, or was
Oh,
it?
I can tell you my first contract, and again, any story that your parents tell you, that your uncle tells you, that anybody tells you about when I was your age, I was making 75 cents an hour. You know what I mean? It's going to sound like nothing, but I was thoroughly happy. My first contract with the Rangers was 125, 135, 145, and another one. I had a 4 year deal, but it was those were the levels I was at. And then when we did really well in my third year, I think after that, then I went up to 300 and something or something like that. And then my last contract was an 8 year contract. But, compared to what they make now, the Neil Smith of the Rangers of the 90s today would be making 3 or 4 million a year. And back then I was making 3 or 400.
Right. Yeah,
So,
it's so
but I was thrilled with 3 or 400. Don't get me wrong. Like in those days, I was over the moon. So it's not like I can complain and say, "Oh, I didn't." I did great. I was happy. Um, and but today it's in another world because of what we've been talking about, the changes in everything.
yeah. Yeah, no. No, okay, so that makes sense a little more as the 4 year contract. You did feel, I mean, you could be fired at any point for sure, but you did feel you had like the plan, just like as per most.
Yeah, you do, but in and again, going back to it, in the NHL and particularly in New York, they'll eat 3 years of a contract without blinking.
Right away.
So,
Yeah.
you didn't that didn't guarantee you that you'd get that much time. What it did guarantee you was, you had that much money that you was guaranteed, and that therefore, no matter what happened, you had time to look for something else.
Yeah. I'd imagine there's lots of pressure, just like in today's, I mean, there's lots of teams that are going for it. Toronto being a very big Canadian city, trying to go for it. I think they're just trying to really, yeah, there's a lot of pressure there, and it'd be interesting what can happen if they can get over that hump of whatever they have going on there, or just can't beat the teams within their whether it be division or conferences kind of thing. But
Yeah.
similar things. I guess a little just talking a little bit more about that Stanley Cup team. Obviously, we know a lot of people, I guess, in whether it be my generation or the older generation would know the players of the star players. But were there any surprises of players that whether you whoever you added or that you really enjoyed, I guess, being part of that team to make it a Stanley Cup team in
Well,
'94?
Adam Graves, I would first go to him because I drafted him for Detroit, and then I was able to get him from Edmonton, signed him as a free agent in 1991, and I really enjoyed his career because he was a guy that I saw a lot in, and hadn't nobody else saw that yet. And so when I signed him, he turned into that 52 goal scorer and all-star, and Jersey was retired and all the rest of it. And I've got a very close bond with him up still today. I knew his dad, I knew his mom, I know his siblings, and so he particularly proud of him and proud of the role that I played in his life.
Yep.
Um, so that would be one guy for sure. And then of course with Mess, um, looking back, people might think that was an obvious thing to trade for Messi, and it wasn't. There was really a lot of naysayers on that trade because he was an older player, and people thought maybe he was all beat up and days were done, and this was going to be giving away young players for a guy that was past his prime and all that. And that turned into be the right move, obviously, to the key to winning the cup. And so I'm very proud of him and that decision. And then the other thing, Brandon, is you have to make decisions too along the way to hang on to players, and don't get an itchy trigger finger and trade them at the wrong time. And so, I walked into a situation where I already had Brian Leach and Mike Richter. They were already there. Um, and as the years go by, you have opportunities to make decisions on everybody, and sometimes the best decisions are the ones you don't make. You end up sticking with guys that you have your heart in, and Leach and Richter, Graves and Messier were certainly the foundation of those great teams.
Right. Yeah. I do remember, well, I mean, even you had the great goaltending, but I do remember one name that sticks out and he's not talked about too much is, I believe, was it Nathan Lafayette that played for you guys too?
Well, he played up for us after the cup. He was
Okay.
actually, Nathan Lafayette was on Vancouver. He hit the post in the seventh game, game seven against us. Thank God, or else that would have been tied the game up.
Okay. So his name came in. So he was against you guys in '94, but you guys traded for him or you signed him?
Traded for him later down the road. He played for us for a while. Yeah, he's a very good guy, a very intelligent guy, and a very good family that he comes from.
Yeah. I was talking about Mess and Adam Graves there. I was able to meet them while I was in that Rangers organization there with being with Hartford Wolfpack there. So that was a pretty cool experience to meet them. I think they did a great job of well, we even had Wade Redden in Hartford
Oh,
at
that's right.
that time when he got sent down there. So he was a great mentor and just so good with the guys. Um, but are those is Graves and Messier, are they still working or still around the Rangers?
Graves is still with the Rangers, and Mess is not. Mess is doing that TV on. You guys might not get it in Canada, but he's on ESPN
Okay.
between periods,
Okay.
and Ricky is doing. He's off in the business world, and I'm not sure what Brian's doing. Brian Leach was with the Rangers. I don't think he is now. Um, Alex Kovalev is still around New York, but not working for the Rangers. Unfortunately, Karpatsev got killed in that plane crash way back in Russia. Um, and some of the other great players like Zubov was coaching. I think the Russian World Junior team, I believe, last season.
Okay.
And I think Nemchinov is back in Russia. And but so the only one I think working from the '94 team is Graves working full time for the Rangers. I think Stefan Matokos does appearances for them quite a bit because he's got the famous goal over the Devils in game 7 at the Garden. So he says to me many times that one goal made his whole career.